You're sitting at the kitchen table. Your mother is on the phone again with your sister. An hour now, maybe more. You can hear her laughing from the other room. You have something to tell her. Something that happened at school today. Something good, actually. But when she finally hangs up, she looks tired, distracted, already moving toward the next thing. So you don't say anything. You go back to your room, close the door quietly, tell yourself it wasn't that important anyway. And maybe you remember this feeling, not just once, but again and again. The feeling of waiting your turn and realizing your turn isn't coming. It happened when your parents made it to every one of your brother's soccer games, but missed your piano recital because something came up. It happened when your birthday dinner got rescheduled because your cousin announced her engagement that same week. It happened when you brought home a report card full of A's and your father glanced at it, nodded, and said, "Good. That's what we expect." But when your sister passed her classes, there was celebration. You were neglected, not in the obvious ways people talk about. You were fed, clothed, housed, but you were secondary, not the emergency, not the priority, not the one whose needs bent the family schedule. You were the one who could wait. And somehow, you learned that waiting was what you were supposed to do. There's a particular kind of invisibility that happens to children like this. Not the kind that comes from being yelled at or hit or overtly rejected. The kind that comes from being consistently, quietly overlooked. Your needs weren't denied. They were just postponed, negotiable, less urgent than someone else's. And you felt it. You felt it in your body before you had words for it. That sinking sensation when you heard your mother's voice change, brighten when she talked to your sibling. That tightness in your chest when you realized, again, that you're the afterthought. You started scanning rooms before you entered them, reading faces to determine whether your presence was welcome or simply tolerated. You developed an instinct for emotional temperature. You could tell when your excitement would be too much, when your sadness would be inconvenient, when your need for attention would be a burden. So you learned to modulate yourself. You became smaller, quieter, less needy, not because you wanted to disappear, but because you wanted to stay. Because if you were easy, undemanding, low maintenance, maybe you wouldn't be forgotten altogether. If you couldn't be first, you could at least be tolerable. And for a child, tolerability feels like the best version of love available. This is what psychologists call relational conditioning. Your developing brain was learning the rules of your environment. And the rule was clear. Your needs are secondary to someone else's, not because you were less important as a human being, but because the people around you had limited capacity, limited attention, limited emotional bandwidth. And in the hierarchy of urgency, you learned you were not at the top. Children don't process this intellectually. They don't think my parents are overwhelmed and struggling to distribute attention fairly. They internalize it. They translate the external pattern into an internal belief. I'm not worth being first. And once that belief embedded itself into your nervous system, it started filtering every experience. Your brain didn't seek evidence that contradicted it. It sought evidence that confirmed it. When someone did pay attention to you, you've dismissed it as pity or obligation. When someone forgot about you, you saw it as proof. This is how attachment wounds form, not always from overt trauma. Sometimes just from consistent deprioritization and the adaptation you made, becoming accommodating, undemanding, secondary by choice, was intelligent. It was your brain protecting you from the pain of disappointment. Because if you never expected to be chosen first, you could never be devastated when you weren't. If you preemptively made yourself smaller, no one else would have to push you aside. It was brilliant, actually, and it's destroying you now because the child who learned to be second choice became the adult who doesn't know how to be anyone's first. You do something strange in your relationships now. When someone shows genuine interest in you, calls you first, prioritizes your plans, chooses you enthusiastically, you don't trust it. You wait for the moment it shifts. The moment someone more interesting, more exciting, more worthy walks into the room and pulls their attention away. You wait to be replaced. And because you're waiting for it, you see it everywhere. Your partner takes an extra shift at work, and you assume they're avoiding you. Your friend cancels plans, and you decide they found someone better. Your colleague gets praised, and you conclude you were never really valued. You create tests you don't announce. Small experiments to see if people will choose you when it's inconvenient. And when they don't pass, because no one can pass a test they don't know they're taking, you feel the old familiar ache. See, I was right. I'm not worth the effort. You've become so good at reading signs of deprioritization that you see them even when they're not there. And when they are there, when you genuinely are being treated as secondary, you accept it because it feels like home. You stay in jobs where your contributions are overlooked. You stay in friendships where you do most of the reaching out. You stay in romantic relationships where you feel tolerated, not treasured, not because you don't deserve better, but because being chosen at all still feels like more than you're entitled to. You don't fight for the promotion. You don't ask for your needs to be met. You don't advocate for yourself when you're being sidelined. You tell yourself it's not a big deal, that you're being mature, reasonable, flexible. But underneath, you're just doing what you've always done, making yourself smaller so you don't get left behind entirely. And here's the cost you don't always see. You're so afraid of being second choice that you've stopped letting yourself be a choice at all. You don't put yourself forward for opportunities because you assume someone else is more qualified. You don't express your feelings fully because you don't want to be too much. You leave relationships before they can leave you, or you stay but never fully commit, always holding part of yourself back as insurance. You've built a life where disappointment is impossible because connection is incomplete. And the people who would choose you first, genuinely, without hesitation, never get the chance because you've already decided for them. You've decided you're not worth it. Here's what you need to understand. This wasn't a decision you made consciously. It was a neural pathway that formed when your brain was still developing. When you were a child, you didn't have the cognitive capacity to separate your parents' limitations from your inherent worth. You didn't think they're overwhelmed and doing their best. You thought, something about me isn't enough. And that belief didn't just live in your thoughts. It lived in your body, in your nervous system, in the automatic responses you have to perceive rejection. When someone doesn't text back immediately, your nervous system interprets it as abandonment. When someone chooses something else over time with you, your body responds as if you're being erased. This isn't dramatic. It's not you being oversensitive. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do, protect you from the pain of being secondary by expecting it, bracing for it, and sometimes even creating it. Your brain is still running a program written when you were 7 years old. And that program says, don't expect to be first. Don't ask for too much. Don't take up space you're not sure you're entitled to. But here's what's happening now. You're not protecting yourself anymore. You're limiting yourself. The strategy that kept you safe as a child is keeping you isolated as an adult. You're so afraid of being second choice that you're refusing to be seen as an option at all. You've decided that if you can't be someone's priority, you'd rather be invisible. And in doing so, you've made the very thing you feared inevitable. Because people can't choose you if they can't see you. They can't prioritize you if you never ask to be prioritized. They can't prove you're worth it if you never let them try. You've built walls so high that no one can climb them. And then you use their absence as proof that you were right all along. But you weren't right. You were hurt. And there's a difference. The child who learned to be secondary was doing the best they could with the information they had. That child wasn't weak. They were adaptive. They survived an environment that didn't have enough to go around by needing less. But you're not that child anymore. You're an adult now, with agency, with choice, with the capacity to rewrite the contract you made with yourself when you were too young to know you were writing it. In rewriting, it doesn't mean becoming someone who demands to be first in every situation. It means becoming someone who believes they're allowed to want it. It means noticing when you make yourself small, not to punish yourself for it, but to see it, to recognize the moment when you swallow your need, because you've decided in advance that it's too much. To catch yourself when you're testing someone, instead of talking to them, to feel the old familiar pullback, and choose just once to stay instead. Healing this doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't happen because you read something or understand something or decide something. It happens slowly in small moments. In the moment you stay in the conversation, even though you feel like leaving, in the moment you ask for what you need before deciding it's impossible, in the moment you let someone choose you without waiting for them to prove they won't change their mind. It happens when you stop apologizing for taking up space you're entitled to. When you stop convincing yourself that being easy is the same as being loved. When you stop accepting breadcrumbs and calling it gratitude, you start practicing being chosen, even when it feels unsafe, even when every instinct tells you to retreat, even when the old wound starts to ache and whispers that this won't last, because you're not the secondary child anymore. You're the adult who gets to decide what you're worth. And maybe, for the first time, you don't have to be easy to be loved.